Welcome to the Bar Hacks Podcast. Expert tips and strategies to help you navigate your bar, restaurant, or hospitality business towards sustainable success. Now, here's your host, Doug Radke, the president of KRG Hospitality, the international brand ambassador for Barventory, and the author of the book, Bar Hacks.
Welcome to another episode of the Bar Hacks Podcast. My name is Doug Radke. Today we have another great episode for you where we talk Las Vegas, COVID-19, Wynn Resorts, and also the immediate future of the spirits business and what you should be considering for your bar. If you know me, you know that I love the city of Las Vegas so much so that we recognized it at KRG Hospitality in 2019 as one of our designated regions. It is a city that I go back to numerous times a year, and I cannot wait to get back there to help support that local economy. Vegas, as you can imagine and have likely heard, has been hit hard by this pandemic, just like many of you and other areas around the world, obviously, but it is a town that is built around that international travel, tourism, and also hospitality. So today I am joined by my friend and industry insider, David Klemt, who is a hospitality editor and writer who lives in Las Vegas, who has been studying and reporting on the bar, beverage, and nightlife industry for nearly a decade, who is going to share some candid insight with you today. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So before we get talking Las Vegas and the quote new bar and beverage scene, we'd love to know, outside of being a car fanatic that I've seen online, what got you into studying and reporting on bars, spirits, and this industry as a whole? Because I think that's a really interesting angle to take. And I know you now have a ton of knowledge on how bars flow, the who's who of the industry, in addition to a number of spirit brands.
I got into the scene as a consumer when I was like 16. I grew up outside of Chicago, and we had legal underage nightclubs. And I want to say it was like at midnight you'd see like all the people who only had a driver's license because they would leave, and then the 18-year-olds could stay because there was no curfew for them. And they would sell obviously non-alcohol drinks. And I actually learned about, shot girls and presentations. Even then they would have like neon lights on trays with just test tubes of different sugary drinks in them, basically. They were horrific, but they would mirror, Goldschlager and stuff like that because we didn't know any better. And then I started going to bars and nightclubs in Chicago when I was 21. One of the most famous, I want to say, in the nation before they closed, Crowbar, which ended up in South Beach years and years and years ago. And I want to say it was, I forget one of the backers, but it was the guy from Biodome, Pauly Shore. Like he was, I guess, an initial investor. And it went from being this massive, awesome warehouse party to South Beach style. And it kind of, I think, affected the Chicago site. And eventually that one went away. And this will sound silly, but when I was, 22 or something, I would sit around and kind of sketch out what I thought would be a cool nightclub idea or a cool idea. Never did it. Never got them funded or anything. I just thought it would be fun to do. I kind of left Chicago just all of a sudden. I realized I wasn't really doing anything besides partying. So I went to the Air Force, and I ended up in Arizona, training base called Luke, and I ended up in Las Vegas over time as a civilian. And my first job was as a valet at a club called Ice out here off the Strip. The building is still there. It was a reality show site for a while. I think it was called The Club. It was terrible, but our valet company was kind of on it. And that's when valet, you could make a ton of money and a ton of connections. And so I started learning about the different bars and clubs, especially after hours, after valeting. And then I owned my own valet company for a while with a partner at a gentleman's club out here with a steakhouse, because that's what you do in Las Vegas. That's totally normal life. And they actually, the owners wanted to get into publication, partially so they could promote the club. And they said they were looking for writers. And I was actually setting up the valet that when they set it, they came out walking and set it. And I said, wait, what was that? Like, you want writers? Like, I haven't really, I'm not good at math. I'm not great at, I wasn't great at history. But I always loved writing. And I was like, this sounds like it'd be interesting. And that was my first gig. I like did an audition, if you want to call it that, piece in the office. And that day I was offered the job as editor because I started editing other people's content as I saw it because I didn't like how it was written. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. And I realized that of all the industries, and this is just my opinion, but of all the industries, this is never the same. Every day is different. There's always something new to learn. There's always a different angle to take. There's always a fresh idea, a new idea. And of course, you can boil them down to just different business ideas. But there's always a different angle. And then the entrepreneurship. I mean, you have people with master's degrees and PhD finish high school, or they just finish high school, but they can still own a bar or restaurant. If you can get the funding and get it open, you can do it. And if you know what you're doing, I mean, we're all gonna make mistakes running one, but if you know what you're doing and you learn, you can keep it going. So I found that fascinating. And then of course, I mean, there's the glitz and glamour part of nightlife in Las Vegas. That's what I sort of cut my teeth on when I was reporting on it. But then I started seeing, dive bars and things like that. And that's actually one of my favorite categories of bar. And we have a couple of great ones out here. And it's kind of been my journey when it came to working with nightclub and bar. I was freelance. And that is an interesting story, at least to me. I guess another writer, this is years ago, was hired on to cover the show as a freelancer. And supposedly, maybe a day or two before nightclub and bar show started, he basically said, if you don't double my rate, I'm not going to come. Because, we had him over a barrel. And one of my friends who started an independent concierge company out here, which was also a fascinating concept because of the way nightclubs can run. And they might tell you back in the day, oh, you've got 4 guys, you can come in, it's going to cost $10,000 for these bottles. They might get there and they'll tell you that's only for an hour. Now that we got you here, you have to give us more money to keep going. But they would come with you, one of their concierges, and keep the negotiations going or keep you from getting a bad deal throughout the night. So that was always interesting. Well, just by luck, one of his friends was in touch with somebody at nightclub and bar and said, oh, we have a writer. And I spoke with them and I took the job and I told them I'll not only do this job for you all, 3 days, but I will give you all the content the following Monday. So when you're back in your office, you'll have all of it. And I did that. And I did that for a few more years. And then I became an editor. And that really gave me even more opportunity to learn more about the industry. I mean, we have the best experts on our panels. You're one of our contributors, or one of Nightclub and Bar's contributors. So we just have the best people. I mean, that's a fact. And it was more than just reporting for me. I felt like I was getting a master's in the entire industry just by being able to listen to these people and, interpret and analyze and report on it. And I don't know if I could actually manage a restaurant or bar after learning everything I've learned, but I think I'd have a pretty good shot at it, or owning one of my own, just from what I've learned. So that's really how I got my start, and really why I find it so interesting. It's just that it's always something different. There's always something new, but there's still base lessons that you have to learn to succeed. Sure. So that's kind of how I came to it in a very roundabout way.
Nice. Yeah. So like you said, you obviously still live in Las Vegas. That's something I think I'm actually a little bit jealous about, especially this morning, since I woke up and it was snowing outside, and I think it's the first or second week of May. So, but Las Vegas, is a town that I fell in love with a few years ago when I visited for my first time actually to the nightclub and bar expo, where I've now been back obviously numerous times, and was supposed to be there 4 or 5 times this year, I think it was. And in fact, we actually have a co-work space that we use over on Convention Drive. A few people don't know that, but we do have one available there. I just love the energy, the creativity, the attention to detail that I always find when I go to different places in Las Vegas. But so basically, I've been following following along with the happenings of Vegas, I guess you could say, seeing some videos and photos of the Strip right now, essentially deserted.
It's a strange feeling when you drive down.
I'm sure it is. But Vegas is obviously more than the Strip and also Fremont Street or downtown in that experience. But what has it been like in Las Vegas since the shutdowns began from maybe a local perspective?
I'd say at first it was surreal because you just don't expect like our hustle to ever slow down in Las Vegas. There's always something to do. I almost went into, like a survivalist mode at first. I was like, oh man, I gotta get supplies. So I went to a grocery store before everything really got shut down. And yeah, there was definitely panic. And then, I went into industry mode. Like, what is this going to do to the industry? Is not only do we rely on, obviously, foot traffic, but we rely on international foot traffic. So it's been strange. But like I said, we've gotten a good grade. Again, I don't know what the organization was, but for staying home. We don't want to be home. I work from home, but I also need to be out in the city, seeing what the trends are, seeing what's going on. So it's been uncomfortable. There's a restaurant out here. It's a small chain called Lazy Dog, and I was able to get groceries from them, and I wanted to try that because I was like, well, if they're going to be open, I'd like to give them some money, and also I really need flour. I need eggs and chicken, and they have it.
Hard to come by, yeah.
Well, I got a 3-pound bag of all-purpose flour and a number of other items, and it was $40. Wow. And I was happy to spend that $40 for groceries. And it was, as the journalist in me, I was also curious, like, what is this like? And it's interesting. They have a phone number. You park on a spot, and you call them up, and they bring it out to you. Which is also becoming part of this phase of reopening for Las Vegas, is some restaurants are asking you to wait in your car until your table's ready. So it's, an extension of the little, pager that some restaurants give you. Now you're in your car waiting, which I absolutely understand. And some of them are, it's not mandated by the government. They are saying, well, we're a private business, and not only are our employees going to wear masks, face coverings, we need our customers to as well. Obviously, when you're eating and drinking, you can take your mask, remove your mask, but overabundance of caution, vigilance, which I think is smart. But yeah, it's been a very interesting couple months at this point. Like I said, driving down the Strip, I only did it twice, just to see what it was like. Tons of bicycles out because they feel safe now to be on the Strip.
I was just thinking that the other day, actually. Somebody with a little camera or GoPro on their helmet going through the Strip there, and they were saying how it's like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them because it's never like that, right? So they've never actually rode their bike down the Strip before, so it was kind of a unique experience for them. But, I'm sure, that they probably like having your town back a little bit, but at the same time, I'm sure everybody would prefer to be back to work, right?
Everybody love to be back to work, and there have been problems with our unemployment system. Being furloughed myself, I'm using our system, and I apparently am one of the lucky ones. I never had any hiccups. It took me a while to start being paid, and from what I understand, it was the initial claims have to have a person going through them and approving them, and then I don't know exactly how it works because they haven't said, but I believe that once you're in, it's sort of automated, I'm guessing.
Right.
Because I've been approved on Sundays, and I highly doubt they're paying for people to work on Sundays, but you never know. We had to hire a third party to add manpower to our unemployment system. And even then, I think it's still struggling. I believe our governor today announced a financial state of emergency, so they have to tap into a rainy day fund to keep essential businesses going. First responders, of course, and to keep them going, take that money. I definitely agree. As far as how I see the industry right now, I haven't rushed out to go to a restaurant or to get my hair cut, partially because I don't like waiting in lines. And it was a 3-hour wait for a haircut where I go. So I was not about to go and run and do that. I believe the mandate is you have to have a reservation to get your haircut, no walk-ins. And restaurants are supposed to have a minimum 6 feet distance between tables. I just don't trust people to be thinking clearly right now. No dig on everybody, but I think just naturally we don't think to social distance, obviously. So I think you start talking to somebody and you start closing that gap because you're having a conversation, and I just don't want to get infected. So, I mean, I have a number of masks I mostly bought from companies that were donating. So one mask I got, they matched you. They were giving them to youth shelters and homeless shelters, 1-to-1. Another one was sending them out to first responders. And another one was like, please buy these and don't buy 95s because we need to give those to first responders. So if you buy these, we'll give you a little discount. And they were also contributing, so I did that. So I wear my masks. I usually wear glasses. So when I'm out in public, I wear those. I have to have them to drive anyway. But I haven't rushed out yet. Because of the reports basically of these new symptoms cropping up and mutations happening, I don't know if food and beverage is safe to touch. I'm assuming it is because it already has been, and the temperatures things are cooked at. But I'm being cautious right now. But the other side, I really want to get out there and see what's going on. So I'm kind of struggling.
Yeah.
As a journalist in the industry, I'm very curious of what's going on. But I'm getting reports just from different restaurants. We can't have bars and nightclubs right now in Las Vegas, so I can't report on those. And that's where I spend, as far as in this industry, and most of my time is in the bars. Right. Because I think bartenders are doing in the different spirits and the different trends. So I am missing that. But people are definitely out there going to restaurants right now. So
nice. Yeah, I know the mayor of Las Vegas has been quite vocal lately on reopening as soon as possible. What a lot of people might not know that are listening to this is the mayor actually doesn't have much say or jurisdiction over the strip itself, from my understanding as well. But Vegas is obviously, again, much more than just the strip itself, but that's obviously the cornerstone of the city and how it operates. But I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, the mayor essentially has no authority over the strip. I don't think people realize too. There's Las Vegas and there's Enterprise and there's Paradise.
Right.
There's a house dance track from a couple years ago called Paradise, and it's about the strip. So there's also Henderson and there's Summerlin.
Right.
So she really has no jurisdiction, but I mean, she's a politician. She's going to be vocal. She feels like it.
For sure.
And I don't believe, from what I've read and just Twitter and everything else, that the governor and mayor have ever gotten along. These two in particular.
Okay.
So he's basically like, you can say whatever you want. I'm not going to rush into anything.
Right.
We did move up our name.
Point of view. Obviously, you don't want her hurting the brand of Las Vegas either, right? But no. That kind of leads to the next point. Obviously Las Vegas heavily relies on the travel and the tourism and conferences. Obviously, that's no secret. So what are you seeing or hearing? I know, like you said, you're not out as much as you want, but what are you maybe seeing and hearing on when or how the local industry will adapt to maybe those long-term travel restrictions that might be in place?
I think a large part is going to depend on what happens with the airlines. We rely on, we can rely on everybody. Like anybody who can come here, we need them. But there are certain parts of the year and certain countries that come here that are like clockwork for us. So we don't know, are our Australian tourists going to be able to get here? B, do they want to come here? Does their government want them traveling here?
Right.
Ireland, places like that. Canadians, obviously, a ton of Canadians down here.
Yeah, right now, I'm not allowed to go to Las Vegas because of the border closure. So
things like that where we're concerned with things like that because it's not even just our government. Then it's another government saying no, you can't travel there. it's an airline saying we can't even get you there, or a plane ticket is $2,000 to get there. And I mean, that still wouldn't fully dissuade Las Vegas. If you can afford that much of an airline ticket, you probably have some money to spend, so we'd love to have you. But I think people are still very concerned. There are restaurants that can open right now that are simply not opening. And it's not because they don't have the employees or the motivation. It's that they don't want to be first, and then they get sued because someone gets COVID-19. I think that's another issue with this is
There's the potential.
this is a litigious country, and people will not be sued, out of their bar or restaurant or home because they opened too early. I don't know the ins and outs of course, those legal arguments.
Yeah, I've seen some restaurants in Vegas specifically actually having basically waivers for their employees and stuff like that as well, right? I don't know.
Yes, as well.
I don't know how much that'll hold up in any kind of court system itself, but
I don't know how that will hold up either. And then there's the hospitality question, and it's before you come in, you have to sign a waiver to be a guest here. Do you really feel like a guest then, or do you just feel like a customer? And I don't know how you grow a connection with your guests when they can't fully see your face.
Exactly. And when I read that the one time as well, I was curious, like, what if somebody picked it up at, let's say, Caesars, and then they're staying at Wynn, but they ended up spreading it from Caesar's Palace to Wynn, right? So whose fault is that?
Exactly.
There's going to be some issues there.
Well, now a lot of our casinos, I mean, as far as our security goes, we've always had incredibly advanced security measures in place because unfortunately we're also a huge terrorist target because it's Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But the Wynn is fully invested, from what I understand, in thermal cameras. And there are restaurants out here that are purchasing thermal cameras. There's a report that the Lotus of Siam, their original location, I believe, took 2 years to reopen after some crazy flood damage. And they have claimed that they're going to invest in thermal cameras. And those can be incredibly expensive, but I have seen $200 options up to over $2,000 options. I don't think an independent restaurant needs a $2,000 camera. But then again, when you tell your customer you're going to be coming through an area with a thermal camera, we're going to make a decision based on what we understand with the virus and your temperature. That's not really hospitable, but at the same time, you can argue that it absolutely is. Like, we care so much about you and our employees and giving you the right experience, but we don't want to put you at risk or our own people at risk. So there's so many approaches to this. It's just hard to understand which is the right one. Is there a right one? I mean, I don't think throwing caution to the wind and abandoning social distancing or face coverings is the right move. But there are people who absolutely are against it. They don't want to be told by anybody what to do, and there are owners who are reporting that people don't want to wear masks. Right. There's financial problems. I mean, how do you attract back your employees who right now might be making more on unemployment? It's not an argument I like, because that's a timed thing. I believe by June 25th, additional $600 goes away. And I don't like that talking point to begin with, just because I don't think a lot of Americans like sitting around just collecting free money. There are, of course, I'm sure there's some, but there's so many angles on this. It's just hard to know what to do, what's the right way to go. The Wynn published, I believe, a 25-page plan.
I'm gonna mention that, the Wynn Resorts just put that out a week or so ago. Matt Maddox there, and the team, I think they've done a pretty good job, in my opinion, of communicating changes, and their employee program. From what I've gathered, they are taking care of their employees quite well during this situation, comparable to some of the other resorts, especially in Las Vegas. There,
the MGM lost a lot of executives. It was last week. And my thoughts on that, initially, I don't want anybody to be unemployed. I don't enjoy being furloughed. But at the same time, I'm wondering, did they need that many presidents. There was a president for every property.
Right.
And I wonder, like, should they always have had a president looking over 2 or 3 or 4 properties? But that also shows you the kind of revenue they were generating, is that they could have that laser focus. You're president, you get this one property, and I understand that, but then it's the other side of the coin is, maybe was there too much revenue leaving because you had that many presidents with those kind of salaries? I mean, it's interesting, and the Wynn and the Venetian, I believe, are paying their employees, and I believe on top of doing the right thing, that's also a smart move logistically. I mean, do you want to have to be told, okay, we're reopening now, this is your phase, reopening this, you have to retrain people or go through an entire new hiring process, which means new training, which means new team members, and you want to have to go through that while you're also dealing with a very serious threat to public health. I think the smart move was to keep people on the payroll, and to.
I agree with you there for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you've had to go in and train our teams and owners. I mean, you know what that's like. Now take that on the scale of a casino. It's, hundreds of thousands of employees, just on the strip. So I think it was a smart move, and I think it's also
trying to train. If you're still supposed to be doing physical distancing, like, how are you supposed to actually train your team, right? That's going to be the next component that these venues are going to have to consider for sure.
Yes, like I'd love maybe down the road for you to talk to my favorite bartender out here, and I'm not supposed to have a favorite, but he's a good friend of mine, and I just love what he does. But he's a Wynn employee, and he's at Encore Beach Club, EBC, and also works for the Sam Ross properties at the Venetian. I don't know, you know what? I think that might be changing, actually, but he's worked at those different bars, and so he's been on both properties, and I'm sure if he's allowed to share that information, it'd be a great talk for you for him to let you know what they're doing or how they tackle training. But it'll be interesting to hear from him, even if it's off the record, like what it's like to go through retraining, because they're always doing training, especially for EBC. Our day clubs are a huge revenue generator out here. And even if it's not, just about alcohol sales, it's about keeping people on the property, and it's great marketing, having a day club and goes into a nightclub. You can just have those people there all weekend. Right. It'll be interesting to see what kind of training they have to go through on top of their intensive just hospitality and bar training, what they'll have to go through for, public safety training.
Absolutely.
So, like you said, how it's even done when you have a giant team and you have to maintain social distancing, or do they have to maintain social distancing?
The other thing that I was thinking about the other day as well was, these massive properties and resorts, and the amount of restaurants and bars that are obviously just along the strip itself, just restocking them in terms of food and beverages. The challenges to get from scratch, because basically they have nothing left probably for the most part. Might have some liquor left, but the food, obviously, you're not just replenishing, you're starting from scratch. The supply chain, I think, is in many areas is kind of hanging by a thread already. So I can't even imagine the pull that's going to be to restock all of those restaurants and resorts simultaneously.
Which is one of the first things I thought of when I went to Lazy Dog out here, and I got my groceries, and I was like, I wonder if their suppliers love this idea. They can give it to the restaurant, and the restaurant can still get it to consumers. I mean, the consumers it's raw product. I had thoughts about that. Just like, is this a great way to, maybe not a great way, but a great way to just to kind of keep those chains somewhat moving. It's going to be interesting to see if distributors and suppliers are going to survive this. I mean,
so like if anybody that's listening, go check out that the Wynn Resorts PDF that they put out. It's got some really good information. I like how they really broke down the guest journey, all the way from like what to do when they arrive via limo, ride share, things like that.
Even their airfare. I mean, Wynn obviously has a fleet of aircraft, and this is how you will use the aircraft as expected from the employees on the aircraft, expected from the guest on the aircraft. I mean, obviously, most of our independent restaurants don't have to worry about their fleet of private jets,
Right.
but that's how dialed in they got. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. If you go to visit Wynn.com, it's one of the first overt links you'll see on the website. You can read their plans, and I mean, it's the votive candles are listed on this. I mean, it's if they're reusable, then it has to be disinfected, and if it's single use, then it's got to go. Managers have to sign off on the disinfecting of certain areas. It's not just we understand we have to do this. It's going to be documented, which I think is smart. I think everybody should do this in a bar and restaurant. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of time, but it's another checklist item. So if you are going to be implementing something like this, where it's the podium has to be wiped down every hour, then yeah, a manager should walk over there with a checklist and say we did this. And I think it's going to also help for future possible litigation that you've got these documents like, no, we disinfected all of these things. If they were single use, they're gone. Like we have this documentation. We're doing these things the best of our ability with the best information that we've got. So if you really do want to see an intensive plan for how to, as you said, take the guest journey through to how to implement a distancing protocol, then definitely check out Visit Wynn.
Yeah, for sure. And like the one thing that really stood out to me was the incident reports. They have like an entire incident report sequence on what to do, even if someone does show signs of symptoms, which, I think everyone listening should probably have a very similar strategy in place to, protect yourselves and your brand and your employees, obviously, moving forward. So, with that in mind, like what are your thoughts on some of the reopening measures or phases specifically, like outside of resorts for, the bar and beverage side? What are you seeing and feeling in regards to that?
So our governor, we're in phase one. We went from, he counted everything else as phase 0. Now we're in 1. Unfortunately, I've done some digging, and not all of our phases have been shared. So we don't even know how many phases there are. I think most people assume there are 4 phases.
Yeah, 3 or 4, yeah.
Right, there could be 7 for all I know for Nevada, because from what I can see, they are letting us know what the phase we're in and then what the phase entails. So we're in phase 1. Bars and nightclubs are not permitted to reopen. Salons, like I said, there's no walk-ins permitted. That's mandated from the local government. As far as penalties, I believe it's a verbal warning here and there. It can lead up to a suspension of a business license, but that's, I believe, last resort, or possibly something that's just absolutely egregious. They can probably escalate.
Right.
But I do agree with facial coverings for employees. And from what I understand, facial coverings aren't just so you don't breathe something in from somebody. So if you have something but you're asymptomatic, you're not the one who's spreading it. So it's not just that, you think, well, I'm healthy, so I'm not going to wear these. It's you don't know if you're healthy.
Right.
So I believe you should wear it. But I think for the employees, absolutely, they should be wearing face masks. Again, I understand that it doesn't look hospitable when you walk through the double doors of a nice restaurant and you're greeted with a sea of face masks from the employees. For me, I would feel safer. That's where I fall on that. I went out to a Target not long ago because I needed some stuff, and I was one of a handful of people wearing a mask, and I was sort of shocked by that, to not just wear a mask. They're not comfortable, but I mean, I was shocked that I didn't see more people wearing masks. I washed my car. Same thing happened. I was the only one wearing a mask when I washed my car. So that was a little surprising. But as far as the 6 feet, table distancing, the Wynn is saying 6, maybe up to 10 feet for some of their places where they have room. And of course, that's another issue. I mean, we all know square footage, can dictate your revenue. So if you want to measure out 6 feet, measuring out to 10 feet, that reduces the number that's a great reduction. So
one phrase I've been saying is the math is going to look ugly, right? So you're going to have to
absolutely
prepare for that now and make some adjustments, whether that's, limiting time that people are there so they're not there for 2-hour seatings, and, obviously increasing menu prices slightly if possible, if your market will, kind of allow for that to happen. And there's a lot of variety of scenarios that are going to have to go through to overcome this for sure, because who knows
and
how
some
long.
of your listeners, they might not be used to this, but in Las Vegas we actually are, especially in the higher end, more upscale venues. If it's particularly on maybe a Friday or a Saturday, your reservation comes with the time limit.
Right.
In plenty of our venues. So at least for Las Vegans, it's sort of commonplace for us, and I believe for tourists who are regulars with Las Vegas or their experience really resonates with them, maybe they would understand how that works. I've had a 90-minute reservation, and I've been told gently, hey, the last 15 minutes is kind of coming up. If you want to settle this bill, or if you had anything else you wanted to order before you move maybe to the bar, but we need this table. I think that's not an unwise protocol to implement. We'd love you to be here, but maybe a 45-minute visit, an hour visit is all we can do right now.
Right.
And the 6-foot tables distances. I believe patio areas, this is a great time to spruce up your patio and really make it the spot to be at if you, of course, have the right weather right now. Las Vegas, obviously, we're getting hot, so this is key patio weather. Maybe in Buffalo, it's not. Although I'm sure people willing to brave a little, put on a parka and hang out at a restaurant outside even if there's maybe some snow or something.
So just shifting gears before we wrap up here, this is obviously speaks to your side of things a little bit more as well. Where do you see just the bar and beverage scene going, maybe more so from like a spirit brand point of view? What should operators and consumers expect? Up here we're seeing some breweries and distilleries, likely going to be closing for good just because the volume's not there and they're not going to be able to sustain themselves for much longer.
I think the big brands, I think they're going to maintain their loyal customers. I believe there was a Nielsen report that just came out that basically brand loyalty, from what they've seen, is even more fanatical at this point. People aren't looking to branch out, but I believe that's heavily reliant on online ordering, and just off-premise purchases. Is what you like, maybe you don't know if that's going to be restocked anytime soon. So for right now, I believe brand loyalty plays a massive role in alcohol sales. I think that might get flipped on its head if things can come back to even a semblance of normalcy, and now you do have somebody behind the bar who can say, I know you love your Tito's, I know you love your Coors Light, but we've got some great local stuff from people who were able to stay in business. Do you want to try this? We've got some great new craft stuff, some great new small batch stuff coming up, because there are still brands that have been releasing. They've been launching even during this pandemic, and they probably have had a little bit of a struggle because people say, I don't know if I want to spend the money if I don't know who you are. So I believe that bars and restaurants and nightclubs will actually be able to kind of turn that new trend on its head again and introduce people to new items. So I think for now, we're going to see the surge in online purchasing really holding steady. I think it grew by 234%, according to Nielsen. And I think that those brands will keep the loyal customers, but I believe that bars and restaurants will play a new role in getting people to branch out. And I think that the classic cocktails will remain the classic cocktails. I do want to see my favorite bartender. I do want to have him make me something crazy and bespoke, but I also just want a really well-made, daiquiri or old fashioned right now.
Sure.
made with quality ingredients.
Nice. Well, that kind of leads to the next, or the last question I always like to ask everybody before we wrap up is, what are one or two bars that you can't wait to get back to, especially in Las Vegas? I'm going to write these ones down so I make sure I hit them the next time I get there.
So I probably got to split this into categories, like in a casino and then out of a casino. So in a casino, I have a feeling the first just straight up bar I'm going to go to is Elettra. That is inside the Venetian. My buddy Armin Nuri works there. He's just one of my absolute favorite bartenders. I don't know if I have a favorite, but he's ridiculously talented. He's just awesome to talk to. He has an insane wealth of knowledge, and his approach to the entire job is just exemplary. I love it. And he can go based off your mood, based off of something you're craving. I'm probably the most annoying guest because I know what he can do, so I don't go in there with a clear sign of what I want. I'll just tell him I want tequila, and I'm feeling a little relaxed today. So then just go from there and maybe something crazy. So that's definitely one on the Strip I want to go to. I want to go back to Mon Ami Gabi, the French restaurant at Paris on the patio. It's a great view of the Strip. You can see the fountains. I just love that view, and it's really relaxed for what people perceive as an upscale restaurant, but it's not out of people's price range. It's a great place to go, great place to hang out and chat. And then off the Strip, I mean, the Sand Dollar, one of my favorite dive bars of all time. They've got beer vending machines. They installed a kitchen a while back for pizzas. They have a great whiskey program, great beer program. So I definitely want to go back there. And then like Kitchen Table Squared probably for a restaurant that's off the Strip. One of the best chefs in Las Vegas. So I've got to get back over there. That's what I'm looking forward to, Elettra and Sand Dollar in particular.
Nice. That's awesome. Thanks so much, David. I think everyone's got some great thoughts and insights on what's going on in Vegas these days, plus some tips on some bar and beverage side of things. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Bar Hacks podcast. That's it for this episode. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Play Music to stay up to date, or head on over to Amazon.com to get your copy of Bar Hacks, the how-to on developing the fundamentals for an epic bar or restaurant. Until then, stay safe and healthy.